you know these documentaries like on Netflix. I hate to speak ill. I don't know what you think. I watched the first couple of episodes and I didn't bother watching the rest because I was like, that's not what it's like.
We're talking about like R.G. Snyman and Peter Steph these freaks that have come through the system. And there's been loads, right? It's not just them. You can go back through to the 80s and he said, you want to see what's coming through. And that, for me, is the worry, right?
He was like, it was nice to hear, and he was right. He went, now these boys, they're different to the other teams we play. Discussing Wales, he goes, they're more like us, from similar backgrounds, not affluent people. But I remember, and he was bang on. He had the two team sheets up, and he said, but tell me which one of them in the Welsh squad has got more effing muscle than you.
Yes, that's the problem.
Whatever this is, then yes.
Whatever this is the Big Jim Show.
On this episode, I'm joined by one of the best in the business. He was on the pitch. He is now one of the best, if not the best in the business, off the pitch. He's a Welsh, British and Irish Lions warrior. It's the great Sam Warburton. Now, I'm limping coming in here.
From what?
Well, it must be from Zerka squats. I've started doing them.
I still haven't done them yet. I feel like it's going to like cut my blood supply in my arms. I don't know how it works, but I just haven't given it a go yet.
So Max Laheath, he can do like
Max.
250 kgs. Mate, he's a dude. I love
I like
Max.
Max. I've met him a few times.
Really good character. So we were talking on here about like weightlifting. There's this Australian guy. Have you seen him? He's on
The Australian strength coach?
No, he's an Australian. I'm going to get his name straight up here actually because I've missed it before.
So what, you feel the Zerka squats is better for your legs? Why would you do that instead of just like a front squat or I know a back is a little bit more loading on your back, but why would you not? Is it better?
They look better.
They look better. It looks hardcore.
Well, Max does them and swears by them, and I do a lot of goblet squats and areas.
Have you ever seen a guy called
Tom
Tom Haviland?
Haviland.
I just love his voice, even just his intro.
Such a smart dude. Matt, I tell you how well read.
Yeah.
But he was into Zerka. He mentioned it to me, and I've seen, like, it looks great. But with my training, I'm very limited. Like, we've obviously gone back and forth on training. So, like, normal was trap bar deadlift.
Yeah.
And I've always done a bit of goblet squat, pushes you into that position. Obviously, holding a kettlebell.
Goblet squat's hard without the mobility. If you can't get down there, then it's hard, isn't it? But if you've got mobility, it's good.
Yeah, but 45, 50 kgs is the max kind of goblet squat you can do. So I'm pretty good at that. So I'd need to go heavier. If I go front squat, maybe because I broke my clavicle, so I've got a bit of kind of nerve scar tissue on that. The shoulders don't have much mass.
Yeah.
But the Zerka, because it's interesting you say like hurts you like your skin on your forearm. So the first time I did it was 60 kgs and it was like you felt like you were going to rip your skin or your tendon were going to snap.
Yeah.
Quickly, mate, if you do it a couple of times a week, genuinely, you can get the weight up to, I was doing 120 for 5.
See, I'll have to experiment with that because it does look proper.
It does look, mate, you look amazing, dude. But my knee now, for the first time, is starting to nip and I'm like, is it that?
Oh, so it's training related what you're talking about. Like limping in.
Yeah, when I'm walking in, because I've been all right. Lower limb, I've been good, even though I've desiccated ankles and medials, but I never had a knee operation. It's always been shoulders is the nemesis. Hence why I keep going back to you and saying, like I'm jealous of the arms.
I'm lucky. My brother's he's just retired. Actually, let's say retired. He was in the Scarlets, and he's been doing pro rugby physio for like 15 years, and he lives bang opposite for me. So it's so lucky for me. I've got him because when I finished, I lost. I was trying to throw a dart. Around, I remember it was 2021 because it was around a Lions tour and I couldn't throw a dart because my shoulder was in that much pain. I thought this is really weird because I finished in playing in 17. I sort of like trained casually, but for 4 years didn't do any like preventative exercise, which people don't do because it's boring. But after 4 years, my shoulder just like weared away to the point I couldn't even throw a dart. Like couldn't pick up a can of beans from the shelf. So I've been rehabbing like crazy. Was quoted like 15 grand for shoulder reconstruction. I was like, I'll rehab it, and it's taken years. But like my brother's helped me come back from it. But you got to like, you neglect your body, it goes. Do you know what I mean? So my shoulders are okay now. I could never play a game, and people are like, to us it's normal to have pain. It sounds daft, like it becomes your new normal, doesn't it? Like walking around in pain. You don't complain about it. You know that's the byproduct of just having a career in rugby. But I'm lucky I've had him to guide me because otherwise you could end up in a hell of a knot. And you've got to do stuff to prevent use it or lose it. Like you've got to train stuff. If I do nothing, pain comes back. So I'd rather train and be in a little bit of pain than not train and be in loads of pain. Do you know what I mean? So you may as well train.
100%. And you are a little bit different because you're in incredible shape and a great athlete. But I say this to my mates. I'm limited in what I can do. So I'll go into the gym, I'll do 3 or 4 as heavy weight sessions as I can do.
You look good, mate.
I
thought that walking
feel
behind
good.
you're trapped up and your back is solid. Like you
Mate, I feel good. I'm as strong as I've
Yeah.
ever been as a player, but I'm limited in what I can do. And it's for that very reason. If I have a couple of weeks off, I struggle to bend over properly. And because I'm 6'9", I'm tall, and that's uncomfortable in itself for a lot of people. But I'm good. But I'm limited in what I can do.
What does a week look like for you, training-wise?
So if it was a week at home...
Because I think people think you're going to say something ridiculous like 6 days a week, but I bet it's not. You just train smart.
4 or 5. I've got a watt bike at home. I swear by that
I've seen
bit
you
of
post some
apparatus.
stuff on there. Yeah.
And because I get good feedback, right? So I'm good at it. So therefore, the output is good. And then I chat to Ebenezer Beth about what he does. I know what Will Scout. I know what George Cruz can do. John Smith was a phenomenon on the bike.
What you like compared to those boys?
I'm good.
I've heard you got a good engine. I think
good.
I told you this last time,
Yeah.
didn't I? There was a guy who was with you at Leicester Tigers.
Yes.
And he said that you second rows just jump on the rowers. He's like, he's never seen a bunch of second rows pull a row like that.
Well,
Like,
they set the bar. So Martin Corrie and Martin Johnson were almost Olympic time on the rowers. And then me and Richie Gray with Scotland did a sub 6 minutes on the 2K, concept 2 row, which is close to it. Richie Gray got a very good Olympic 2K time. I was in around the top 20 to 25. So from an engine point of view, but that's a tough exercise to do, isn't it? The rowing one is very uncomfortable.
would you say that was your USP playing? Probably like your engine and your edge, probably.
People laugh when they say this, Sam, but thank you for asking. It was, Matt, I was incredibly fit. So just naturally fit. From a youngster, I used to do like longish distance running. If we did them 100 metre, the 100 metre runway, so 100 metres and then 100 metres back, so the 200 metres, I was very good at them. Bleep test and yo-yos and stuff like that.
That was my nemesis. See, I was all like the
Fast
other way.
twitch.
I was fast twitch. Anything like over 8 reps, I crash and burn. Do you know what I mean? And I mean in the gym, never mind running. So I was like, I had to really work hard on running, and that's where like when you hear like when you do talks to like companies and businesses, you talk about you need competition, and they think it's just like something you say in sport. But mate, that row example, for example. But that's why for me, like when Tipperick come on the scene and he kicked everyone's butt at running. And I was like, oh my goodness. But it made me so much better because I had to work my nuts off to get good at running. So it makes my game better. And he probably saw certain strengths I had and brought him up as well. But I was terrible at running. Sevens are historically known to be fit. And I remember doing the Bronco on a off season. I was coming back. And we had this Kiwi coach who came into Cardiff. And he's like, Sam, you'll be in the 5-minute group on day 1. I was like, oh, no, I'm going to need to start in the 5:30 group because everyone loves the Bronco now. It's this easy test to administer. He's like, mate, you're a 7, you'll be sub 5, no problem. I was like, mate, you don't know me, I pride myself on my digging. I wasn't aerobically fit, but I had a lot of digging. I remember doing this Bronco and he was like, I was running back to the finish line. It was like 5:28, 5:29. I dived over the line at 5:30. It was day 1 of pre-season. I was like, mate, I'll get down to sub 5, but I ain't going to start there. But I was aerobically poor, man. But yeah, you had that. That's like a genetic thing. Do you know what I mean? You can work on it, but I wasn't naturally fit.
I was talking to George Horn, the scrum half from Glasgow. So he's got the second best Bronco time, I think, in history. We were at the Lewis Capaldi concert on Sunday. If I'm to say 4:04,
wow,
I might be undercutting. It was 4:0. It was definitely under 4:10.
I know, like teens who listen, they love comparisons of like time, so it's a good one for people to chase.
So here we go. So we're at the Lewis Capaldi concert, and poor Aaron Rowe, who I follow on social media, who's a musician, he's playing, and we're not watching him because we're talking about content and we're talking about the Bronco. And I said, rugby's missing a trick and all of these different things when it comes to content. So these lads are coming into the office, coming into work, into the training ground. It's like, they're asking these silly questions about if you were in the Olympics, what would you do? Or 400-metre runner or favourite movie star or whatever. Like just average content. I said, George, Horny, did anyone film you doing the Bronco? Did anyone bang a drone up, put a GoPro on you, ask you to take your shirt off because your body fat percentage is under 10% and actually show the world and show the fans just what an incredible athlete you are? He said no. And that's, for me, is where what you're doing is great because you're showcasing like athleticism around the game. You'll naturally see the feedback you just mentioned from the younger audience. But on a much bigger scale, what I was saying to Horny was, and he doesn't know it, he'll want to be it, but I don't think he truly knows. You've got an athlete there who is playing professional international rugby, who's probably one of the fittest guys in the world. But not only that, he's corner flagging people and putting his head in the spokes and his body on the line. And the physicality and the mindset that you need to have is you're an outlier. You are not a normal human being, but no one sees that.
Yeah.
We're not getting to see the true athletes of our game. And that was just an idea, and me and him were deep in conversation. We miss poor Aaron Rowe singing.
You know these documentaries like on Netflix? I hate to speak ill, but like, I don't know what you think. I watched the first couple of episodes and I didn't bother watching the rest.
So that came up as well. Keep going.
Because I was like, that's not what it's like. You want to see the real raw... And I know it's difficult because there needs to be that trust built between the unions and the media officers at the unions and what access they get. But you need to see like the raw halftime team talks, the pre-match rituals players go through. And I like what Courtney Laws said recently when he was like, rugby's not a game for all people. Mate, rugby's hard. It's there's a lot of pain in the preparation, particularly during play. I remember sitting next to Dan Lydiate, one of the most feared tacklers in the game when I was playing with a teammate. And pre-match, maybe we were talking before a big international game, going to play in front of whatever, 70, 80,000 people. He's like, mate, I'm just nervous about what I've got to put my body through for 2 hours. That's what I get nervous about. But we need to show that. We need to show like what rugby players actually put themselves through. And yeah, there's coffees and stuff on your days off, but it's the real raw stuff, which I wish people could see that a bit more. And I think that's, maybe it's not Netflix's fault. They'd want that access, but I think the people involved in rugby need to just like release that a bit more. And it's not a game for everyone. Like we were chatting this before, like I think some of the combat sports do it brilliant. It's like, no, it takes a certain mentality to play this. It's great at grassroots level, really inclusive, brilliant team sport for young kids to play, just to teamwork, camaraderie, learning about accepting defeat and bouncing back and adversity, all those great things. But I think we need to show and I not just mean me, everyone who's played the game at top level, like you, and it's something I'm not sure if you can coach, but you've got to be tough at that level to play. And we need to show that mindset, because that'll really resonate with some people. Like you, I think you said it to me. When I watch MMA and I'm fascinated by it, I'm not there going, oh, I want to compete. I watch that going, I'd never compete in that, but I love watching it. Like, yeah. I think rugby sometimes is too scared to try and make it feel it's for everyone. It's like, no, it's not. But just lean in on the ones. It still makes good TV. Just not we're saying we want everyone to be an international player. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think we need to lean in more into that. Like that's what I just thought of what you said with George there. Like show what he goes through, what he puts his body through, because it's unusual, isn't it? It's different what players have to go through for pre-season. And when somebody says like, oh, rugby, oh, you're living the dream being a rugby player, I'm like, mate, come to pre-season for 3 months. I bet you won't make it past the average layman now. If somebody is motivated by playing rugby, they will. But the average person, like, just come and join us for 3 months pre-season. I don't think you'll last 3 months.
But it's elite, and that is when I watched the Netflix doc, the first 2 episodes, there was nothing in that where I was like, oh my God, these are some of the best athletes in the world, which they are. I'm not just saying that.
Oh,
you were one of the best athletes in the world.
Somebody said this. There's all this high rock stuff going out now, the hybrid athlete. And somebody just went, rugby players, when I say rugby, I don't just mean exclusive to us, league, all those codes, AFL, union, all those types of things. They went, rugby players or contact athletes are the first hybrid athletes. Changed my mind. I mean, they've been doing, because the beauty about rugby is people go, well, what physical trait do I need? When you played, you have to be as big as you can, as strong as you can, as powerful, as quick, and as fit. There's not many sports you have to try and do all 4. So this hybrid athlete thing has just come in fashion now for the layman. And that's why I'm like, I love that style of training. But I'm like, that's what rugby boys have to do. You can't specialise like an NFL where some guys are just speed and power and some guys are just size. You've got to do everything, which makes it such a hard sport to train for. But we don't show that. We don't show how much. I guess heptathlon and decathlon for female and male athletes is similar. But it's such a hard sport to train for, And I love it for that reason. But it's coming into fashion now in the fitness world. It's like, oh, rugby players have been doing this for decades.
And that's the thing. Look at the growth of high rocks and the interest in that space. And I know like they're competing at the weekend, and anyone can go and do that, right? So there's your everyday man and woman sport or event or whatever. But we are banging the drum, and it's like we're going over a little bit of old ground. But it is so topical, isn't it? Because I watched the boxing at the weekend, Terence Crawford versus Canelo Alvarez, and the production was absolutely...
Alvarez?
No.
Oh, was it?
Terence Crawford beat him.
I've been living
Schooled him.
Really?
Schooled him.
Is that his first loss?
That's Alvarez's third loss. He lost to Floyd Mayweather and Bivol as well, the Russian.
Yeah.
But this Crawford had no idea how good he was. But you look at the alignment in that sport, the Riyadh season, whether or not you like Saudi or you don't, they're doing their thing. They've just signed the deal as well with the NFL and Tom Brady doing his thing. And you look at the people in that room, you look at the production, you look at the access, and you look at the press conferences, and you look at the people that are involved in that ecosystem. A lot of them are ex-athletes as well. Okay, and contributors that have and want to be seen and to showcase what the sport does. And you don't need to be the best speaker or whatever. It's that element of aura and elite whole fucking hell. You're a boxer. You're in the UFC. At the minute we don't have that in rugby. Oh, what have you had for dinner as you walk through the door or whatever? I'm trying to think of like poor pieces of content. That we're 10 years behind or 5 years behind, and I just pray, not religious yet, thinking about it, but that we haven't missed the opportunity to collaborate with the Netflix again, because they're going to take over for me the sporting streaming world. Like you look at what they're doing, NFL have the games on Netflix around Christmas as well, but I just wonder who's creating the narratives of our sport. I spoke to Bill Sweeney, and he was talking about how to, him make himself relevant. I said, you don't. You don't, Bill. Like, you don't. You're a 65, 70-year-old, however year old, multi-millionaire, right, who wears a suit, okay? And some people might think it's cool, but the young kids coming through probably can't relate to that. And I was like, who's the head of content? Oh, not, because that person who is head of content probably is the most important person in your organisation, because sport now isn't just sport, and I think I've heard you speak about it. It is entertainment and it's a media ecosystem. That's the facts of it. That's all the other sports. Now, that person who is running that and who is head of content for the Lions or head of content for Ireland, I'm talking about two organisations who didn't let anyone in and hardly put anything out, they hold the keys to the game. Yet they are probably, with all due respect, they won't be the highest paid in the organisation. How qualified are they? Do they understand what that means to the core? Do they understand what media and entertainment is? And that's where we're still in that space now.
12 years ago, 2013, when I was on my first Lions tour, they got the video guys there. And they came up to me on day one and they said, oh, Sam, there was like 3 or 4 of them. So when the Lions DVD is produced, they want it to be as fly on the wall as possible. For those who don't know, the Lions do a DVD every 4 years. I used to race that DVD as a kid at Christmas when I was growing up. And then suddenly you're in this privileged position where you're captain on the tour, and they come up to you and they go, oh, Sam, we're the DVD lads. Is there anything you don't want us to film? Because we've had captains in the past. They'd worked on multiple tours. We've had captains in the past. There were certain team speeches or certain meetings they didn't want us there. So you let us know what you don't want us to film, and we'll do that. And I went, boys, like, I grew up watching this DVD. I think people should see everything. You film whatever you want. There's nothing which I'm ever going to, if I'm just quickly got the boys together for a private meeting or anything pre-match, I mean, you film whatever, because people need to see that. And I heard there was some pushback from players when Netflix first went in, particularly in the Welsh squad. And I think it probably comes more from the senior players, because the younger guys have grown up with this digital world that we're living in. So I think they understand. But some of the older guys think we're a little bit reluctant. But what I got to think is, because it's very transactional, where you get paid X and you do this. It's like, now you need to look at the bigger picture, lads, because they were like, well, what am I getting? What's in it for me? And I'm like, what somebody should say is, if they're head of content, the platform, because you could be put out in front of millions of people, and don't think there's not going to be, depend on what work you're chasing, there's not going to be CEOs of companies not watching that, thinking, that guy's impressive. Can he come and speak in my organisation? Now, all you've done is given access, but what I think some of the players don't realise is, allow the access, speak to the players, explain it. It's better for your brand if you're going out on Netflix for free, and then what you'll get off the back of it will be much better. So I think it's a bit of a mindset shift. It's not so transactional, black and white, you pay me X and I do Y. I think when it's given access, the players need to understand the more access they give, actually is the better, because people will buy into you. They want to see your authentic self and see you naturally, and they want to feel they're in on the inside. But I think once players can accept that, and of course there needs to be strict, almost like, so if a meeting is filmed, that needs to be gone over with your head of content and your coach. Like, can this go out? Yes, no. You've got to have some editorial control. I get that. But you need to be able to give up a little bit of that control. And like you say, then suddenly everyone will be... And when they see the real rugby behind closed doors, they'll love it as well.
You know, I'm big on South African rugby for a number of reasons, right? Not the fact that it was my rite of passage, which it was when I went there as a young man. I played for Natal and 21s in Durban. Leicester sent me there. So I had a great experience with the country. So I was there for a season. So there's that part of it. Then there's the human element to it. You've got these vicious savages who cause controlled chaos, but off the pitch they're religious, they're warm, they're engaging, they're always lovely. Okay, but also the people running the show there. I know commercially it's very different, and that's a reflection of South Africa as a country, not the team. You've got Rassie at the helm. Now, the reason why I mention kind of all them things in that order, because I don't know if you watch Chasing the Sun.
Loved it.
There you go. The fact that Rassie has set up an ecosystem within that squad that no player, Sia Khaleesi, one of the greatest who ever done it, Eben Etzebeth, one of the Peter, the list is endless within that team, Cheslin Colby. No player is bigger than the team or bigger than the country or bigger than future-proofing the sport. They don't get a say who's filming what. And the fact that on Chasing the Sun 2, they filmed, from the outside, the door ajar, Eben Etzebeth and Dwayne Vermeulen, who clearly didn't get on, sorting out their differences, or they wouldn't play. Rassie said that, and you got to get an insight into two of the hardest mother ever to have played the game during a World Cup, having an uncomfortable conversation. I'm like, wow. And that's Rassie.
That's rugby, though.
That's rugby.
Yeah.
That's rugby.
Yeah.
And that is where, when I'm getting goosebumps talking about, when we were looking at that show, I was like, this is it.
That's why I liked it. And Rassie did a pre-match speech, and they were playing Wales, actually. And I remember he put up the team sheet, the Welsh team sheet and South African team sheet. And it was quite nice because Wales we really leaned in on our working class background that we come from, hard working, never give up, very resilient group over the years I was playing. And they were playing in this World Cup year just before I retired, and he was like, it was nice to hear, and he was right. He went, now these boys, they're different to the other teams we play. Discussing Wales, he goes, they're more like us, from similar backgrounds, not affluent people. But I remember, and he was bang on. He had the two team sheets up, and he said, but tell me which one of them in the Welsh squad has got more effing muscle than you. Not fucking one. Because rugby, mate, is a physical, uncompromising sport where 99% of the time, the more physical team wins. Because at that level, everyone's skilled, mate. We all got tactics, we all got skill, got fitness. But it's often the ones with that physicality and emotion that when you equate everything else, that it comes through. And I watched that and I thought, yes, because that's how I played the game. I actually loved playing South Africa the most because I loved that physical and emotional challenge that they brought. And that was great for if you're that minded, that's what you want to be up against. So when people are like, what's it like facing the Hacker, facing South Africa? I'm like, don't get me wrong, they were obviously better teams than the teams I played in. And they want you to go, oh yeah, it's intimidating. You're like, nah, I loved it. I freaking loved it, but they embraced that and they showed it on Chasing the Sun. And that's why, that's a coach I would just run through brick walls for, because that's the game. And that's what you can imagine my coaches, the ones I really like, Gatland, Sean Edwards, Farrell, they all lean into that side. And they don't say it in press conferences because they know people might not like it. But that's there's many things to win a game, but that's a massive part of winning games. And South Africa just put it all out there. This is how we win rugby, and that's their superpower. They've lent into it and they showed the world it. And I love the fact they did that. So credit to them for doing that.
They're always ahead of the curve, South Africa. They on everything, on player development, on this stuff that we're talking about now. And I just reiterate, they just can't, because of the country and everything politically there. Commercially, they just can't line it up. I think they were trying to sell part of or all of the union. So they wanted someone to come in and buy South African rugby, and they were talking to an American investor, which I can understand why. I think New Zealand the All Blacks have done a similar thing, because they are sat on the greatest ecosystem of rugby.
I think that, and Brian Urbana had to tell me this, because I asked him, I was like, how, I don't understand how they can't have like their version of the French league, the top 14. They got the player base easily, and he was just like, mate, the country is just, it's hard to make it commercially viable, because you think that being such a proud rugby nation, they could have their own domestic league of like X amount of top teams, and they got so many players. They got enough players to do it, but they just can't, it's hard to make it happen. But I'd love to see it. That's why they've obviously come up to the Northern Hemisphere to play, and I love the novelty of them coming up to play the North. But I've always been like, I don't know how they can't sustain their own league, but obviously they got their challenges, which I don't understand because I don't live there. But when people who live there, they're like, oh, we got the player base to do it, but I think commercially is very difficult, which is sad really, because they are one of the greatest rugby them and New Zealand you have to put as the two greatest rugby nations in history. But they got such a, they're the two things that strike you when you play South Africa or New Zealand, is just the number of people and their attitude towards rugby. I thought it was big in Wales. It is big in Wales, but you go there and you're like, wow, this is like, it means so much to them. But I love that, but I'd love South Africa to be able to probably not have the difficulties that they have, because it would be scary how much better they could be if they had all that infrastructure back home as well.
Yeah, I was chatting to my mate who's involved in some of the academies there, and we're talking about like R.G. Snyman and Peter Stuff Toy, these freaks that have come through the system. And there's been loads, right? It's not just them. You can go back through to the 80s. And he said, you want to see what's coming through. And that, for me, is the worry, right? Because you look at Scotland rugby, and we'll talk a little bit about Welsh rugby. And, okay, yes, there's the drop-off of participation. I understand that. And everything around the commercial part of the game, which is a separate conversation. But the profile of the athlete now, and I've got kids, so I've got a 14-year-old son, and I'm watching his group of mates' development. Some have gone through puberty, some haven't even started yet. And I'm like, they need to be in an athletic program if they want to play rugby, right? Because of everything around the dangers of the game, neck strength, body position, and the fact that the game is so hybrid now. It's not, oh, you're tall, you're in the second row. You could be 6'5" and play in the centre. Oh, you're the fat one at the minute, you're in the front row, which is a really compromised position to be in. So I'm like, now, if Scotland rugby, specifically because I'm there and I'm watching it unfold, the way things are now, in 5 years' time, you are not going to compete specifically with South Africa. It's not happening. It's gone. The game will be gone at that point now, because at the age of 14, you need to be profiling these athletes. Okay, you're tall. Okay, we need to bring you into... You're probably not going to make it, because probability tells you that, right? But we need to give you the opportunity. We'll put you into an athletic program. You'll be doing judo. Okay, you've not gone through puberty yet, so we're not going to put you into the weights program, but you're going to be doing functional training. You're going to be doing bodyweight squats. You're going to be doing all, and this is your area of expertise. Because these South African fucking monsters went through puberty at 10 years old. And they are in these programs. Hundreds of them are in these programs. And that is the worry for me, where I'm trying to... So whereas before I kind of took a backward step with my lads kind of program that he's in, because he plays basketball for Scotland as well, and we're pushing that, and now he's playing in the centre, and he's a great offloader, but physically he's nowhere near it. And I'm looking at these schoolboys, in South Africa specifically, but you could look at New Zealand. I'm scared to think what they look like in Fiji. We are, and Wales will be the same. England are okay, Ireland are okay, because they've got programmes in place. But you think it's bad now, the difference of talent and discrepancy of us not beating South Africa, Scotland specifically. We might have a one-off game. What's coming around the corner could be dangerous, I feel.
People say, oh yeah, but rugby is a game for all, and you just discussed the George Horn example. But I was like, he might be small for a rugby guy. Mind you, if he was walking around the supermarket, he wouldn't look that small. It's just in comparison to other rugby guys. But even though he's small, but he is elite. All the small guys are exceptional at something, whether it's their fitness, whether it's pace, whether it's their ability to express power. They're extremely powerful. Somebody would be like, I met so-and-so the other day. He's quite small, isn't he? I go, yeah, but you've tried running into him. He'd buckle you because he's so powerful, which is a genetic trait. And you need to find that early. I said something about identifying players earlier. People are like, no, you can't do that. You're ruling them out. I don't mean you disregard the ones at 14. And there's some pretty cool stuff going around in Welsh rugby at the minute. I know Ospreys have adopted it, and Cardiff Rugby are going to adopt it, where they can look at a player's biological age. So you might get they looked at like an under-16s age group, and they looked at their biological age. So you can take some basic data from parents and the players themselves, and they can say, okay, this guy's an early developer or a late developer. So they might be, well, they're all 16, for example, but it was something ridiculous, like 90%. Don't quote me on this. So like 90% of the group were what you would call, they were 16, but they were biologically displaying the traits of 18-year-olds. They were early developers. But then it raised a good question mark. It's like, well, there's a huge portion of people, because in rugby, if you ain't physical, you're not standing out. There's a huge portion of players then who are the other way. They're slow developers, but they might end up coming through. Well, you need to profile that young. And that's where these teams have done that. They've seen someone who might have been on the fringe, hanging on by a thread. He's 16, but they look at their biological age, go, look, he's 16, he's actually probably only displaying the age of a 14, 15-year-old. Keep him in the system, because he might come through and be like physically express at the peak of his powers much later than someone else. But we need to identify that early, because to play top level rugby, you have to be of a certain genetic ability. You can massively improve people, but if you're not powerful, strong, big, you don't have to be all those things, but if you're not at least a couple of those, you are really going to struggle. And people don't like to hear it, because they're like, oh, you're ruling out a whole demographic. I'm like, yeah, I am. Because if you are naturally just not the type of person who just can't display power, and like some guys are naturally engine guys, some guys are naturally power guys, you can develop bits you're weak at, but you have to be good at something. You have to be really good at something. If you're not, I'm sorry, the sport's not going to be for you. And then you've got to couple that with, once you do find someone who's got those physical traits, or the potential to have those physical traits, then you have to couple it with, which is the question I always ask, and there's a good kid coming through, well, what's he like? They'd be like, yeah, no, he's good 40-meter time, good squat, good skills. I'm like, no, what's he like? Does upstairs? Does he really freaking want it? Is he tough? If they're like, oh yeah, he wants it, then nothing will stop that person. But if they're like, he gets distracted, drinks a bit, likes the girls, I go, it can be a waste, because you need to. The number one trait when you go into any top dressing room that you've been in is those guys are all resilient bastards. Like, just got this stubbornness to never give up. And that's what you need as well. So yes, you've got to find the physical. When you have the physical and you've got the mental, and you put that together, you've got a pretty serious potential international athlete on your hands, but you've got to find that young, you've got to identify that young. And it's not ruling out those who aren't physically gifted, but give them time and don't rule them out young, because they got to be able to come back in. And to any young person listening, it's not how good you are when you're 14 that counts. Stay in the system. It's how good you are when you're 20 that really counts. So hang in there till 20. If somebody's disregarding you at 14, 15, you should never give up. If you're 20, 21, and you've been putting yourself out there, you've been training religiously, and you don't make it, okay, that's the bitter pill to swallow. You're not quite good enough. But never rule yourself out young, because people can come through at different times. But yeah, you have to have a certain ability physically and mentally to play the game at top level. Like you say, you look at the Safa boys and you're like, wow, they got both, which is what makes them pretty special. And
it is investment in these conversations and being like, okay, so what are you doing in that space? Like, it's really cool that you actually said that that's what they're doing in Wales. I had no idea, because that's exactly what it is, isn't it? It's not about the now, it's the future proof of what is coming through. Of course it is. How are the under-20s doing? Well, they're beating Ireland or whoever it is, or in the Six Nations. Well, that's good, because that's what's coming through. And it will marry up at that point in time when it comes round to the seniors. But a lot of it's science and data now. And with our game, because we're always late to the party on all of these things compared to the other sports, and let's use contact sports specifically, or NFL or NRL or NBA, because they are big sports. But the science and data, when you're profiling people, that's what it is, isn't it? It's really interesting you mentioned about the biological age and stuff like that, because I was thinking about, I got my biological age when I was at Dallas Cowboys, so I got flown over there to go and look at stem cells. And they were like, right, we're looking at this end of it, but we also profile our athletes to have a look at their systemic age. So I had my blood done and everything like that to look at my biological age. I was 36.
And how old were you at the time?
I was 42.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so
Congrats.
I was 36. I know, but I was a late developer, so I went through puberty quite late and stuff like that. And yeah, just the amount of time and investment that they put into athletically profiling. And that's me, I'm an old has-been, right? But these things for these young children coming through is when you can start weights, when you can start pushing them, when you can start putting pressure. Because if they're in a scrum, if these young kids are in a scrum against a bearded child or like a man child, it's dangerous. and then you're going to put the kid off.
Yeah.
And this is where, there's a lot of work to do in this space now, because they're talking about participate, and I don't have the answers, right? And I know we get asked a lot, and you get asked a lot about the business of the game, and all of it. We're not expert. It's not our expertise. We've got an opinion on them, but it's not our expertise. But it's like you've got, with the stuff that you're doing, there's like, what are the ages of people that are coming through your doors?
Yeah, so I wasn't. Oh, you mean with Cardiff, or you mean with the SW7?
No, with the SW7.
Yeah, because Cardiff, I got a lovely sort of snapshot into what they were doing there, and that was, I'm not around there anymore, but with the SW7, that's why I kind of started that, because I'm like, I'll give you the physical head start that you need. I think what people don't probably, pro athletes understand this, but what a lot of people probably don't understand is that, and this is where not many, and this is probably why I felt I made it, where I was good in Cardiff, right, coming through the system. I wasn't the best guy. I certainly wasn't the most physically gifted. I was good, and I was in the probably upper quartile, but I wasn't the best one. But what I had was this just relentless nature just to keep stacking sessions after sessions, with no guarantee I was going to make it. But from the age of 14, 15, when I was pretty obsessed, I thought, you know what, I'm going to do everything that no other 14, 15-year-old is willing to do at my age. I'll do it for 5 or 6 years, and when I get to 20, just from work ethic alone, you'll take over 99% of people, because not that many people hang in the fight that long. And I don't know where I got it from. I just had this very unusual, obsessive mindset. But that's just what I kind of preach. I'm like, look, there's no quick wins. If you're going to jump on this train, doesn't have to be with me, but stack sessions for years. And it's like, for somebody just to try and relate to it, if it's a fitness journey, for example, if you ask people like, if you stuck to like a 6-week training program, a lot of people would have done it. If you stuck to 12 weeks, less, but still a decent amount of people. Go, all right, what about 6 months? Not many. And you go, okay, who's done it for 3 years? Mate, very few people. And people are confused when they don't get somewhere. And like, we're living in this world where people are preaching this like overnight success story. It's like, nah, there's no such thing. Look at like a Pollock, for example, who's just come through for the Lions, right? He's 20 years old, just suddenly burst onto the scene. Mate, I bet you Pollock's been training pretty seriously for 5 years. Like, of course, he's got genetic ability, but I've always said he's got the one thing that stands out to me. He's got the physical attributes to play at that level, but he's got the mentality to play at that level, and that's why he's come through. And I'm like, yeah, there's no such thing as doing something for 3 months. You'll get there. I'm like, I'm not going to preach a quick win, but if you're willing to do the work for a long amount of time, I mean, not just in your fitness journey, in like your professional career, or if it's a sporting career, you'll get there, because not many people are actually that patient, because they all want something quick. Invest in this, or go on this fitness plan, or jump on this. Like, as a sports person, this is how you accelerate yourself. It's like, there's only kind of one way to the top, and it's probably the long, hard way. And that's why not many people get there, because they're not willing to put themselves through that without a guarantee. But that's life, isn't it? You've got to take a chance, take a risk. So that was going back to a point on when I say to people, that's how good you are when you're 20 that counts. That's what I mean, look, all this now, if you're 14, 15, 16, you listen to this, look, you've got 4 years now, 5 years to get a head start over the average 20-year-old who won't put in what you think they're going to put in. So that's why I love preaching that. I love giving people a physical head start, getting good, solid advice. You couple that time with solid advice, you'll make immense progress. But few people have the discipline to stick around for that long.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. If you're enjoying the Big Jim Show, please follow the channel, subscribe. You can leave a comment in the Spotify comment section or on YouTube. But I really appreciate every single one of you. But if you haven't, please follow, subscribe. Helps the show grow, keeps the momentum going. Thank you to everyone. Back to the show. What about the fundamentals of athleticism? Yeah, you need to be able to catch and pass and tackle. I've got my ideas of what I say to my son and say to his mates, but mine isn't based probably on as underpinned as science and I suppose knowledge of you. You have that knowledge. So maybe if there was 2, 3, 4, there could be 5 things. If a 14-year-old, maybe let's just say they're going through that development now and they'd be like, right, I want to be the next Jim Ebenezer Beth, or I want to be the next Henry Pollock. Okay. Give them a few foundations of what like the non-negotiables,
of what they need to have,
or need to be working on, or to be thinking, right, I need to make sure that I'm stretching, or like I'll give a few. I'll maybe just
it's a very good question.
As you're thinking. So I think I was very, and again, a lot of this is maybe my trauma of stuff that I wasn't good at. I wasn't a great athlete. I wasn't very quick. I was very stiff. I had poor shoulders because I used to swim when I was younger. So I didn't have the best I didn't have any foundations coming through. But I would say everyone needs to be fit. So you need to have a degree of fitness. Now, I don't know when it's safe to start hammering a rowing machine, but you need to start conditioning your body to be on apparatus, okay, for length of time. So like cross trainers, like bikes, start to get that feeling of sweating and feeling hard, like something is more difficult. So that's, I'd say, the foundations of that for me. Understanding your neck and the strength around that. I'm not saying you start racking them up, but starting to think about your posture and the way that you start to move things around. If it's weights, if you're doing bench with a bar and stuff like that, that your head's not forward and in that kind of weird position that you'd never been in. And I would say stretching. And some people are varied on stretching because you don't want to be too supple and stuff like that. It's actually good to be quite stiff, but being able to move. Like I looked at Victor Wembanyama, who's the 7'2", 7'4" NBA player, youngest draft pick, and you look at him move. He doesn't move he moves like a 6'3" athlete. And I say to my lad who's going to be 6'6" or anyone tall, you need to be able to move and look like you move well. And that comes from a younger age, balancing on one leg, being able to get into the jackal position, you know what I mean? Being able to rotate your back and all of these different things. But maybe you just give a few things that are kind of non-negotiable.
Do you know what? Have you ever met somebody who's done gymnastics who hasn't turned out to be a good athlete?
I know where you're going.
Yeah. My daughter does like something called acro. She did gymnastics, because it just gives you that spatial awareness and that ability to learn how to deal with your body weight. But I mean, this is going back to like probably parents if they want their kids. Like there's people who are like want me to specialise my kids now in rugby or golf or football. I'm like, no, I introduce them to everything, because then all those motor skills can all be transferable when you go into sport. So my kids, I try and do loads of. My boy loves playing basketball. Not that I want him to make it, but I say to my wife, see, basketball is brilliant for hand-eye coordination, like for your skill, you know, like. So we can preach the physical, which you need in rugby, but if we talk about rugby, for example, that's why I think New Zealanders are so good. I actually asked Andrew Goodman, who was on the Lions tour. I thought I was going to know. I thought I knew what he was going to answer, but I wanted to ask him to hear from his perspective. He's coached over here now, and obviously in the Northern Hemisphere, but he's from New Zealand. And I said to him, I said, why do you think, and this is what I thought, so I was glad he said it. I said, why do you think New Zealand skill level is just... which they're superior to most nations. A lot of teams are catching up now. Because when I do like a rugby session now with juniors, they think it was going to be all tackling. I'm just doing non-stop, mate, like catch, pass, hand-eye stuff. Because I think skills are so underrated. And he said, mate, like you grow up playing cricket, it's hand-eye. You grow up playing football, hand-eye, rugby, hand-eye. The amount of times the equivalent 16-year-old has catched and passed the ball compared to somebody up here is just way, way more. Because ultimately, like you have to have that skill level. So that's why, like my boy, and I completely agree. I always think that, like, we play football a lot over here, just culturally, like everyone loves playing football. And I just think that ability to catch pass is so innate and ingrained from a young age if you do it for years and years. So I think my boy now, like he loves playing basketball, like brilliant. Look at Thomas Williams, plays for Wales. Former basketball player, unbelievable awareness with the ball in his hands, which you have to be a top player. It's probably where I fell down. A mistake I made coming through was I focused too much on the physical. I wish I'd had more skill development from a young age. So like my boy now, I'm introducing him to, and my daughters, for example, gymnastics, like basketball. He loves that, loves playing football as well, because you need that kick ability. So I'm like, don't specialise somebody in one sport now. Introduce them to everything, because they're all transferable, those skills. But if you want to get very good at something, yes, say rugby, like you have to have a good strength base. Because if you've got a good strength base, then your power base will be high. Just say, for example, that you've got somebody who can max squat 100 kilos. And you've got another person who can max squat 200 kilos. The 100 kilo person is never going to be as powerful as a 200 kilo guy, because he's only ever shifted 100 kilo. But you put a 100 kilo bar on this 200 kilo guy, he's going to shift it like a feather. So you need that, what they call strength foundation. You need a foundation of strength, because it'll make everything else so much easier. It'll make your body more resilient. It'll make you naturally more powerful when you do transition to power training. So getting a good strength ceiling is, I think, is really a really good base. Being aerobically gifted, like, or isn't for everyone, but everyone can get fit. So having a good aerobic base, and then probably more from a mentality perspective, like if you want to go down this game and you want to be an elite athlete in whatever sport you're going into, you have to love it because it's hard. And if you don't love it, you'll quit. And I saw a great quote from Steve Jobs once when I was just at a random place. I saw it and it said, pick something, not exactly to the word, but it was along this line. It said, pick something that you're really passionate about. Because when it gets hard, the passion will pull you through and you don't need to be pushed. And it's so true. Like becoming an elite at anything, whether you're in the business world or sporting world, whatever, being a good dad, mate, like it's hard, but make sure you love it. With whatever sport you choose, make sure you love it because it's going to get tough, it's going to get hard, but then it's okay. You don't mind getting up to keep doing it over again. So you need those fundamentals of aerobic ability and strength level and then skill. You know, if you've got those three things, if you've got skill, you've got strength, and you've got your aerobic ability to play contact sports, you're doing really well. If you've got those three, you're doing well. If you love it at the same time, well, that's just going to give you time in the game because you're just going to keep going and keep going. So if you have those four things, if you had three of those four, you've got a good chance of making it. If you've got all four, my goodness, you've got a great shout.
Yeah, mate, that's really cool. There's a bit more substance to mine than saying getting on the floor and start stretching. My lad plays basketball for Scotland, actually.
Oh, that's really important, mine, stretching.
So,
I do agree, though. Mobility
you do agree
is
with
like
stretching.
Underrated. I only train 4 times a week. I do 5 minutes at the start of every session. So rather than dedicating, because I don't have time to go to the gym, I've got 3 kids and go do a designated 45-minute yoga session. Yoga's glorified mobility. We call it mobility in rugby. It's just glorified mobility with a bit of zen. That's what yoga is. So I do what I call mobility. And I'll just do that for 5 minutes for any session I do. Weight train 3 times a week, do 1 aerobic session a week. But that 5 minutes collectively is 20. You're better off with mobility doing little and often rather than just one big 45-minute bout on a Friday or a Saturday morning and then never touching it again. So for longevity and just to feel good, you just pepper that as just standard prep. But yeah, when you're a rugby player, that's what you do every day. So you just do little and off with mobility. So that is hugely important. I think that's what, you look at all the good pros, they're all doing their prehab, all doing mobility. And maybe younger guys don't value it when they're young because they can just rock up and train. But that's what gives you longevity because one, you're getting those good professional behaviours, but you're looking after your body. And I kind of like indirectly look at prehab, like physio exercises and mobility as strength training. Because if I don't do mobility and I don't do my prehab, I get pain. And if I get pain, I get pain inhibition. If I got pain inhibition in a joint, I ain't strong. So you've got to do that stuff to keep you strong, So it's all part of this well-rounded. But it sounds like that's a lot of things to think about, Sam. It's like, now you do 5 minutes of mobility for a session. You do 5 minutes of prehab. You do 50 minutes of weights. Now that is way better for a 1 hour session than just going in and just crushing bars for 1 hour. Rather than do 60 minutes of hard strength work, do 50 minutes of strength work and then add in 10 minutes of prehab mobility at the start of every session and you have much more longevity.
Yeah, you're conditioned for that though as well, aren't you? Just the way that you live your life. For you, it's a way of life. It's not like an add-on to your life. It's what you do. Because looking at your stuff and the videos, you're in some fucking shape.
I don't lift that much though anymore. It
is genetics, isn't it? Let's clear this up because me and Stevie Ferris were having this debate when I was talking about my arms, which are very strong. They just don't look strong. And he said it's triceps, not biceps. So you've got great arms. Okay, I've got a great back. You can't see that, so I can say that.
Yeah, but I walked behind you earlier and I was like, oh, Jim's got good traps, I've got traps.
Oh, did you say that? Okay, thank you.
Mate, they're nicely poking through your T-shirt. But everyone's got mate, we've all got body dysmorphia, everyone, apart from a couple of social media kind of idiots out there who just can't leave their T-shirts on. I don't like going to a swimming pool, believe it or not. I don't like getting my kit off. I'm like, I got proper body dysmorphia.
About which bit?
I don't know. I expect people probably think, they see me on Instagram, they think, this guy's going to have like an 8-pack, which I don't. And I remember my co-founder summed it really well because he can get into amazing shape as well. But sometimes when he's not, he's always in good shape, but for his level. And he's like, mate, and I resonated with it. He's like, mate, sometimes I just want 8 cookies more than I want abs. And I'm like, that's so me. That's me. I don't live this monk lifestyle that it might seem. I do think genetics play a part. My arms naturally just respond very well to training, but then other aspects of my body don't. I'm not. You won't see any posts on SW7 about my calves. So there is a genetic. Some people just genetically just got great features, but then other parts of their body that don't respond as well. So everybody has that, So you'll probably know what your genetic features are, which just are pretty good in response. Some people can curl for days and they don't. They're like hard gainers on certain muscles, but that's just everyone's genetically different, So genetics certainly does play a part in aesthetics. Otherwise, everybody would just be a champion bodybuilder. I think was it Ronnie Coleman somebody's like, I don't want to take steroids, so I don't want to look like you. And he said, even if you did take steroids, you still wouldn't look like me, because he's still got a genetic ability to look like that. I think it does a little bit of a disservice to a lot of bodybuilders. They're genetically gifted and they obviously enhance themselves. But that's why they get to this level which no one can get to. I'm not saying I want to get to that, of course I don't, but there is a genetic element, of course, with your body shape.
Everything poking out of you, though, your neck, your arms, they're the thing. Stuff poking out of me that doesn't point to the fact that I am conditioned and I can still
so you've
do
got
it.
body dysmorphia, mate, because you're fit. If you looked at a 42, what would you say, 42?
42, you're 43 in a couple of months.
Mate, you'd be in the top percentile of 42-year-olds in the world.
Yeah.
But because you're probably surrounded by, and you know rugby lads, you sort of compare. It's like this thing, in it. People always compare themselves to what's greater. But there'd be loads of 42-year-olds who'd be listening or walking around going, "Oh, I'd love to look like that guy. 6'9", lean." Like,
thanks.
you are the mate, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, people kind of forget where they are. They sort of sort of always look at, which is just part of probably your.
Well, you're part of the issue, because I'm looking at your socials with the music on there and that ambience lighting. And your arms are screaming.
Mate,
the next,
lighting. Mate, if I have a pump and you've got down lighting, it adds a kilo of lean. It adds a stone of lean mass. Like, I'm not as big as it looks on Instagram. Do you know what I mean? But that's just social media. And we actually like to joke on that. You know, I'm like, I don't look this big. You know, people actually see me a lot in the flesh. They go, "You're not as big as I thought in real life." I'm like, yeah, that's just because TV makes you look bigger, doesn't it? You know. But yeah, that's just social media. That's why people got to take it with a pinch of salt what you see. For sure.
Are you doing neck stuff? Your neck is still big, and that's where I was chatting to Petrus Duplessis. Do you remember Petrus?
Yep.
Yeah, so I played at Sarries with Petrus. He's still playing rugby in Australia, the madman. But we got on this neck rehab journey, and I have literally not done any neck stuff since. I think because I was hanging on, like my neck was kind of the thing, the straw that broke the camel's back.
Did you have an op in your neck?
Yeah, on my
recently?
throat
That's
and
right,
stuff like that, and like a pin in the clavicle and stuff like that. But do you do neck stuff? Because you can see it looks like that's been harnessed recently.
Yeah, I still do like what they call neck ISOs, where you and it's easy to train. Like, you just put a band, get a resistance band, just a normal band. You get that like sort of 3 foot long, that loop round, tie them onto a squat rack, and it's not hard. When I mentioned like 5 minutes of prehab and mobility, you just bolt it onto that part of the session, stick it around your head, walk away, tuck your chin, hold like a 20-30 second ISO, do it to the front, do it to each side, do it to the back, you know, and still just train. Yeah, you know, I don't neglect anything. I make sure it's only a little bit of everything. You don't have to sit there for half an hour doing neck, but just little and often. But yeah, it just keeps you. I don't know. Like, when I retired, I was like, I can't just be on this physical decline until death. Like, when you're rugby players, you're on this. You feel like you're on this ascent, just chasing an extra percent every year. You just want to get better and better. Then you stop playing. I'm like, I can't just physically wilt away. So like, training is great. I didn't realise how beneficial it was for longevity, for mental health when I was playing. I just did it because I loved it. But now when I finished, I realised how important strength training, and strength training doesn't mean like powerlifting, it just means lifting, resistance training. How important resistance training is for my mental well-being, my physical well-being. It's just like a non-negotiable that I have to fit in. And I think once people jump on that train, they get the bug, they never leave.
Of course, no one trains and says, "Oh," it depends how hard you've gone. But if you go into a gym or you train at home or you exercise, no one says, "Oh, Phil."
I wish I didn't do that.
Yeah, it's the complete opposite, exactly. Which is the obvious thing, right? But we're in this world now where you keep having to kind of reiterate that and say that. And there's a lot of good people out there. This is the thing, like with social media, depending on how your algorithm is, and if it's skewed with any bad stuff. But a lot of the good stuff will tell you that.
Yeah.
You know, and there is this push now to be better, and not necessarily preachy, but telling you to look at yourself, as opposed to like all the stuff that you're saying. You look, "Oh, he's better, she looks better," or whatever. It is much easier to enhance your life by exercise and doing these things.
And like, social media is really difficult for the average person to cut through all the noise and find out who's legit. And that's why I've always been like, whatever we do, I don't want to do any wanky stuff. We're just gonna spit straight truths. And if anyone's ever just wants to cut through the noise and go, where do I go to find out what's fact? Not from anecdotal experience, that counts, anecdotal experience and what you've gone through yourself, but from like literature. And if anyone's like, I don't even know these people, there's people in the nutrition world, in the strength and conditioning world, who I know, if I need to make sure that, if I need to call out a little bit of bullshit, who do I go to find out? And it's like the top leading researchers. There's like a guy called Dr. Brad Schoenfeld, who's amazing, one of the leading sort of muscle hypertrophy researchers, Stu Phillips, Lane Norton, Alan, like more of a nutrition, Lane Norton, and obviously building muscle as well. Alan Aragon, nutrition. If anyone's listening to this and they really want to learn, just consume their content. Consume their content for 1, 2, 3 months, and it's so refreshing. They've got a great knack of breaking it down for people to understand. It's not too sciencey, it's not complicated, but when everyone's talking in a world of keto and no carb and all this, and people are like, I'm getting so confused which diet I need to eat. Like, you just listen to those guys and they will just tell you straight what you got to do. And the good news is it's way simpler than you think. People are just trying to make it too complicated because they want to sell something. So many ways to skin a cat, but those guys, if anybody just press rewind 30 seconds and just write those names down, follow them on socials if you're into health and fitness, and then you'll just make it so much easier for you.
That's the thing. Like, now it's never been easier to consume the right information.
You just need to know who is the right one.
Yeah, and that's great. I've not heard. I think I've heard maybe of one of the guys that you mentioned.
That was very male centric. There's somebody called Gabrielle Lyons as well, who's phenomenal. And I preach these things to my wife. People say, "Oh, your wife's got in good shape. Like, what you been doing?" I'm like, she just strength trains twice a week. And I tell her, like, I've educated on how to modify her diet without even noticing, making simple swaps, which would just reduce your calorie intake without even noticing. But to hear it from me, from a guy, and from researchers who are guys, is I know it's not as receptive when coming from a lady's perspective. But then there's this one lady who I listened, and I can listen to these podcasts. Like, oh, they're brilliant. You can just tell they're great, and she's excellent at preaching what women should do, which is the same thing. It's strength training. You know, aerobic is great as well. But I urge people to do that. If they're like, I want to get fit, I'm like, you need to do resistance training, and you need to do a bit of aerobic work, and your longevity and your health will just be drastically different.
Follow the science. That's what they say.
Yeah, it's just truth, isn't it? Like, there's no self-interest in it. It's just facts.
Well, I say that kind of tongue-in-cheek, follow the science, because I had Jamie Peacock in the studio last week, and mate, he's a savage, by the way.
Man, mate, yeah.
Tough man. 46, I'm going to say he is, and he does the high rocks and stuff.
He's in great shape now.
He's in great shape. So this is the thing. So I was saying follow the science, don't follow what Jamie Peacock or I say on here, because I didn't follow the science. So I take creatine. Normally 5.
Banker, mate.
Well, but you say banker, right? So Jamie takes 30 milligrams a day, which is a high dose.
That's high.
So before the episode yesterday in the studio, I thought, Jamie Peacock, I felt a buzz being back in the studio. So I've put 20, 30, could have been 35, could have been 40 in my creatine shaker. Next thing,
oh yeah,
I am out of the studio.
You've got to build up to that.
And you've got to build up to that. I was like, there was no science in that. I have been influenced by a man that I was drawn to because he is a savage.
So what, there is like with creatine, there is like what they call like loading phases where you can take like 10 to 20 a day for 5 days, and it just gets the levels in your body to a certain level. Just play the long game. Just take like 5 to 10 if you're a little bit bigger. 3 to 5 is what they recommend, just to be safe. But just for example, just hit that like sort of average sort of for most people. Just take 5 a day indefinitely, and then you'll eventually get to the saturation levels that you need. But yeah, 30 is a lot. There is some evidence now saying that you can take more, particularly for like cognitive benefits. So if you're sleep deprived, you can take 20 grams. And I do this. I have a bad night's sleep with the kids. I only got 4 or 5 hours kip. I whack in 20 grams in the morning, and mate, it could be the old placebo.
It's not.
But there's science to back this up.
It's proven now.
And I feel great. I'm like, I don't have that flagging in the afternoon. I'm like, I still feel sharp, and I've had 4 or 5 hours kip. So creatine is one of those ones. There's been thousands of research studies on it. Anybody listening, even my mum and dad, who are like well into their 60s now, I'm like, you need to take creatine every day. You got to take it. Just 3 grams. That even just don't go like you said you done straight in the deep end at 30. But it's one of those things. And it's cheap, mate. Creatine monohydrate is cheap. You can, most good sources you can get for like 10 quid for a month's supply, but it's brilliant from a strength training perspective, but also the cognitive benefits as well, which is probably more newer or coming to light now as well. The benefits of creatine are probably a lot more than people first anticipated. Yeah,
the listeners can trust us on that. I'm a massive creatine.
I will only say something if I know it's fact. I'm not that sort of clickbaity person. I just know, like, I'm very careful with what advice I give. But creatine, anybody who knows anything in that industry will just say, yeah, got to take it.
A bit about rugby. Tell me how you found the Lions, the whole tour. A couple of questions, if I may. So I thought the footage was really good on Sky. I was really impressed. They had the right people in the room delivering it, presenters, and there was a buzz around that because I feel like we were going in the wrong direction, and the responsibility of selling the game and delivering the game in the biggest moment, which this summer was the British and Irish Lions tour down to Australia. How did you find the whole coverage from it?
Enjoyed it. I mean, I thought the announcement was massive. They said, I think they said the announcement of the squad is as big as from an attention, like eyeballs. I think as many eyeballs on the squad announcement as they do on Test 1. So I thought to take it to the O2 and announce a squad live, it's sort of like Americanizing it a little bit more, I just think, which is good. It took a long time to get to the squad announcement, but it was great. It sort of brings everybody in because the Lions is such a unique thing. I'll always preach for the Lions. It has to exist in the rugby calendar, for as long as professional rugby exists. It's such a phenomenal thing. But yeah, Sky have obviously done it a lot of times, and they know how to do the Lions. So I really enjoyed the coverage. It's lovely to dip into it, and I still pinch myself for something when I lift up the mattress at home in my bed, and I got nothing in my house, by the way, no rugby memorabilia. But then there'll be an All Lions kit bag with my initials on it, and mate, honestly, I'm I can't believe I've done that. I played for the Lions. It's such a special team, such a special, and to watch it is always unique. I was really pleased Australia turned up as well, because World Rugby needs a strong Australia. We're not like football where we got lots of teams who can beat each other. We need our big nations being good, and I thought Australia probably exceeded a lot of people's expectations. They were great, and they were physical. When Skelton and Valentini come in, mate, they just transformed that pack, and that's rugby. No surprise to anybody who's played the game why they were a lot better. So I was really pleased that Australia sort of bounced back and answered a lot of critics. A lot of pressure on them to turn up for that Lions tour, but it was great. Really enjoyed the coverage. It's always a privilege to be involved in that. I probably think I've got maybe one more tour left in me as a broadcaster. I've sort of set my sights on, if I can get to 40, 44, then I'll probably end up sort of leaving the TV, because in 4 years' time, it'll be the New Zealand tour. Obviously, the 12 years before I was on that as captain. Then beyond that, it's got a whole 12-year cycle without me. And then I'm probably going to be, which I know this is just the life cycle of broadcasting, and same when you're playing. There'll be the next Lions captain who's coming through who's got interesting things to say. And then so I'll probably end up going into a different aspect of life. So I'm sort of thinking, if I can do the broadcasting for another 4, 5, 6 years, I imagine by then I might be old news and somebody else will come, and I'll probably end up having to leave the broadcasting. Just you can smell the coffee when you start noticing you might be maybe not as sharp as you used to be. And when that comes, just like a player, I'll be like, right, now's my time to go. I don't want to sort of become that annoying presenter, but maybe, if I get another 4 years out of this game, that'd be decent.
Yeah, mate, you can't put a time on it.
Yeah, I just see it, suck it and see, really.
But I know it's the self-awareness. I completely get that. I'm all for that. But there's a few guys that are delivering the sport the way it should be delivered, and having maybe before the uncomfortable conversations and discussions and relaying what the sport actually is. And you're one of them guys, so don't put a time scale on it.
I always feel guilty when you're on the TV live, and I'm talking about physicality a lot. And I'm conscious that you can't, you got it. Sometimes the word collision isn't not with Sky now, but some broadcasters over the last 7, 8 years I've been doing it with, oh yeah, do you mind, don't use that word. It's a bit aggressive. I'm like, yeah, but that's rugby. Yeah. That's rugby.
Sam, that is where I'm saying there's a long time for you to keep doing this, and I'm doing my thing and talking about it. Because it's not for clicks, it's genuinely to the core. I do this podcast because I love doing it. I love having conversations with people about our sport. And there's nothing, we're not trying to, sensationalize anything. It is the facts of it. And you know what? We're in it for the athletes, because that's what the athletes are. It's physical, it's collision. You mentioned Australia there, and you watch how they played in them second 2 tests. It was what else could you say? You couldn't say anything else but holy shit. I know you don't swear as much as me, maybe not at all. I'm like, holy fucking shit. The physicality. There's nothing else you can say. It's pissing it down. Yeah, there ain't nothing else happening. People are getting run over.
But I love that. So, do you know what? There was the one game which stands out in my memory. And I was with Rory Best and Brian O'Driscoll.
Legends.
Both legends. They've been through everything, right? Rugby. They played in massive games, and we were watching the Ireland v South Africa group game in the World Cup in 2023. Was it 2023?
Yeah.
And mate, rugby at the World Cup I'm making up these figures. Say that was give or take a few million, like 5 million-ish, whatever, watching that. I don't know. Now there's probably around, I know like on the domestic games you get like maybe 500,000 on a big game. So I'm like, there's millions of people tuning in here who haven't seen rugby. Maybe they don't know much about it. They know what rugby is, they haven't seen it. I watched the first 5 minutes of that game. It was barbaric, but within the context, within the laws of the game, jerseys and players flying in and out of the screen. It was absolute, because it was the two best teams in the world at that moment in time going at it. We looked at each other after 5 minutes and started laughing like, what are we witnessing? But weirdly, I thought it was awesome. I loved it. And now there's games which takes the sport to new physical heights. Like it happened in 2009 Lions Tour. That test series just took the game from a physical game to another level. And South Africa are always involved in these games. That 2023 World Cup game was another one. I just thought, oh, wow, there's going to be people watching this going, what is this sport? But that for me was more entertaining than seeing like a sevens style game of rugby where you throw in fancy passes and line breaks everywhere. Because I'm like, I just question the defensive integrity of teams when that happens. But that was like, I loved it. That was international rugby at its absolute best, because the higher up you go in rugby, the simpler the game actually becomes. So when you're being asked like pre-match, whether it's captain, even now as a presenter, pundit, like, oh, what's going to win this game? I'm always like, it's the same thing that wins every game. It's set piece, it's kicking game, it's discipline, and then it's take your chances when the opposition half. Like that's the game. Like that's it. That's all the things you focus on. It's your contact area, which is your physicality, set piece, kicking, take your chances. That's it. Like, and everyone loves to try and overcomplicate it. But the higher we go, actually, the simpler the game is to play.
And that's where the delivery is key. And that's where we've not had, and I'll call it out, we've not had that joined up approach of delivering, especially on free to air, if you look at that, because that's the mass audience. And I was the same. I was at the World Cup in 2023, and I had the best seats in the house. I was pitch side.
Yeah.
And I watched the Ireland New Zealand game from the side of the pitch in the quarterfinal, and I have never seen controlled violence like it in my life. I know South Africa weren't involved in this game, but specifically that. Jack Conan's running around with one boot for 30-odd phases at the end of the game. But before that, the collisions, the jeopardy, the energy, the size of the human beings, not just the forwards, the backs. And I just wonder whether that came through at home to people watching in how they delivered the conversation and actually realistically and honestly what was happening out there.
This is like all great as well, but then do you get, when you discuss things like this, do you get criticism then on the sport about, well, what about player safety? Like you're preaching this physical nature, like particularly all the concussion stuff that's coming out. Do you get much criticism talking like, because that's what I get it. People are like, you're discussing this, Sam, but what about player safety, Do you get much?
Well, I do wonder whether I lost my job at World Rugby. No one told me this, but there's a part of me where...
What was your role there before?
Well, I was content and creative director.
Oh, nice.
Because they took Rugby Pass.
Yes.
They took it into World Rugby, and I started Rugby Pass, content side of the business. So I went into that role with like, fucking hell, I'm at World Rugby. I can hopefully make a tangible difference of how I feel about the game.
As you said, yeah.
Yeah, like might have the keys to the kingdom here. So I can push player welfare. I can talk about creatively how I see the game and how I think the audience want to absorb the game. The US, thinking about that stuff. So I went in there like, wow. And then I had my pitch side show with all the celebs. So again, from an ego perspective, I'm not doing mainstream media, I'm doing alternative media, but I've got Rita Ora and Taika Waititi and Javier Bardem, George Russell. So everything was kind of rolling in the direction that I dreamed of, I suppose. And I've been on this 10-year hustle with Rugby Pass and growing the game, content, documentaries, podcast, and having cool conversations. But then it just fell off a cliff. And I do wonder whether, because of my views on the game, that might have become uncomfortable for them. They never said anything. They were great to me. Like World Rugby were great to me, but we weren't aligned on how we saw player welfare. We weren't aligned on how we saw the delivery of the game. And it's tough for them, right? They're in a tough spot because they are the federation that looks after our game. And it is for them, it's actually the opposite of what I think they need to be seen as a little bit opposing, because it's about inclusion. It's about growing the game. It's about numbers. It's about investment into the women's game as well as the men and making sure that they're serviced. It is about not speaking about collision and violence, even saying them words. So they would never have said them words. And I do wonder whether me being as kind of passionate and honest as I am, it might have caused a few uncomfortable truths for them.
And this is where there's two parts of the game, though, isn't it? There's the community game, and then there's the top-level pro game. Two very different things. You can't use the same language for both. It's completely different. I would never use the language we're talking now at the community
100%.
game. So you have to, but maybe they're concerned that people see it as one. It's like, no, it's not. I remember telling, it was just come up a bit earlier, but my sister had two boys. I remember like playing tag with them when they were young, and they just they found it really hard, and they got tagged and would get upset, and they weren't playing team sports at the time. I remember saying to my sister, they got to play football or rugby. She's like, why? I just introduced them to like winning and losing and having to work with other people and adversity, like only at school level and with their mates and recreational. But I think the sport's amazing for that. And the data's very safe. Rugby's very safe, when you compare it to other sports at that level. Very, very hotly policed at pro level, and it needs to be very vigilant to that level. But at grassroots community, and I've been shown a lot of this data, it appears to be nothing's 100%, nothing. I acknowledge that, but in comparison to other sports as well, it's pretty safe at a young level. There's always going to be accidents, but yeah, that's why I urge people to do that and play rugby from a young age. It's very different to the pro game. I think the benefits of playing, not just from a health perspective, but just to be a good person and to be a part of a team young, I think is really important for young people as a life skill. And I think that's why rugby's excellent at grassroots level. Yeah,
100%. There's a conversation kind of brewing that I might have started online. Okay. It's only a small one, just put it out there, because I've been away from rugby for a little bit, so I just thought I'd spark the fire a little bit, because the championship's on, and I don't know how much of the championship you've been watching, but it's a brilliant tournament, as you know.
Sure, I haven't seen any of it yet, but I will catch up on it, because I like to watch it fresh in November when I'm doing the game.
Oh, okay,
so I keep an eye on it. I haven't watched it.
So I've had a bit of time off, so I was like, right, I need to get back into it now as we're starting the pod. But I was talking about how the championship is now up there with the Six Nations. You want to see the 250,000 impressions that people are coming back on. They are like, what are you on about? The World Cup, the World Cup was been won by Southern Hemisphere teams since England in 2003, and they're going off on one. I just wanted to get your views as we go into the autumn. These teams are coming up. There's no globalisation of the calendar, so you have this kind of warped entrance into the autumn, don't you? You've got a team coming off the back of an incredible championship. They're battle-hardened. Yes, there could be a few injuries. And you've got our Northern Hemisphere teams kind of tiptoeing into it between... Well, no, the Champions Cup's now been moved to December, so there's no Champions Cup games until after.
That's right, yeah.
I think I'm right in saying...
December.
Whereas they were before.
Yeah.
Do you see... what are your views on the kind of Northern Hemisphere and Southern Hemisphere? Let's do something for the fans.
Yeah. You can't deny that there's more heritage in the Southern Hemisphere.
Heritage?
Not like success, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, like heritage within the major comps. So like if you're looking at the greatest teams in the world, there's some Northern Hemisphere teams in there. But overall, over the last, since the game's gone professional, let's say, even in the recent sort of modern era, you can't deny there's been more success in the Southern Hemisphere. Of course there has. But then the competition, so that the Six Nations as a competition, I think is phenomenal competition with amazing heritage. I got my words mixed up. Now, there's amazing heritage in the Six Nations. I love that. Now I think the Six Nations is, as a competition, not take the World Cup away, it's like annual competitions, it's probably the envy of the international rugby world, because everyone's in close proximity. It's commercially so viable. There's travelling fans. You get everything with it, and there's always jeopardy. It's competitive. For the most part, apart from the odd couple of games, which it tends to be anomalies. It's an amazing comp. Now, yeah, the best teams in the world, we can't do this now, but if you said, right, who are the 10 best teams ever to play the game in the world, yeah, more would be Southern Hemisphere than Northern Hemisphere if we did that right now. When I was growing up, there was a big gap. There was a north-south gap. Southern Hemisphere were a lot better. That gap has got so tight now. It's so tight, but you cannot... I remember saying before that I thought Ireland were the best team in the world, but you cannot deny, and I do stand corrected. This is the thing when you have opinions. I'm changing my mind all the time, and I'm learning all the time. You can't deny then, like it or not, make South Africa rock up at World Cups. they rock up when it matters. And New Zealand historically that like rock up like that's why I said they're the two greatest rugby nations that have ever played. And that's going to upset a lot of people, but that's just kind of facts. Like you just look on paper what they've achieved. There's some great nations, behind that pack. But I think there's been more success down south, but that gap is closed massively. If the last 3 World Cups been won by Northern Hemisphere teams, then yeah, we got a much stronger argument, but it hasn't. And there's something about delivering in that pressure cooker at the coalface of a World Cup where the stakes are at its highest. Like who turns up consistently, and it's New Zealand, South Africa, isn't it? For the most part. So, the North are very, very close behind. They're breathing right down their neck, but they haven't got the silverware probably to back up the arguments that are coming from the South African and New Zealand quarters, which is fair enough when you just look at it black and white on paper.
Yeah, and I think that's where people's noses were out of joint. One, it's subjective. It's an opinion. Yeah. I played 10 seasons in the Six Nations, so naturally I'm going to be like, it's the best competition.
It's a great comp still, yeah.
Of course, it's a great comp. But I do understand what they're saying where Italy, it's a lot of them games are a foregone conclusion, unfortunately. And Wales at the minute.
Do you know, I've had so many messages with the whole Welsh situation, because I said about the whole relegation thing, which now I'm probably a little bit more... you realise the financial consequences if a team goes down.
What did you say first on the relegation stuff?
Whoever loses the Six Nations should have in the following summer should have a playoff at home against whoever won. Is it called the Rugby European Championship?
Yeah, Europe Champ. Yeah.
So historically, that's been Wales the last 2 years, and against Georgia. Georgia come to town in the summer. Mate, you'd watch that game. Like if they can turn Wales over in Wales, they come up. Now, I realise that would be financially, unless you do massive balloon payments, but even then, like Wales aren't going to get the gates if they went down. I'm like, yeah, maybe that's not viable, so maybe expansion. So that's where you speak to... This is where, like, when I come up with an idea, it's an idea that needs exploration. You sit around a table with people smarter who've got different opinions and looking at it from different aspects, and then you all come together with a conclusion. So I think when people hear an opinion, it's like, look, this is an idea. This is just a starting point. Pros and cons, let's go. Like, let's figure this out collectively, and that's how all the key decisions should be made. But now I kind of realise, that wouldn't be good, because what if Italy, who have made so much progress in the last 10 years, went down? Actually, we don't want to lose the momentum that they've built. So when people are going, oh, would you have relegation now, Sam? And I was like, well, on my last opinion, when I thought there should be promotion relegation, yeah, they should. I'm not letting my nationality get in the way and being biased. I'm just trying to think here progressively. How can we grow the game? How can we lift the glass ceiling off other nations who might want, inject more investment into their game if they knew they could have this carrot of playing in this amazing annual international competition which generates so much money? How can we lift the glass ceiling off the rest of the rugby playing nations? That's my starting point. It's like, how do we get there? And it might not be the right way, and it probably isn't, but it just needs to be a starting point for more discussion on how we can evolve our game, because people don't like change, do they?
Well, and that's the thing on this. I imagine that game. So as a creative, I think about that game of, let's say it's Georgia and Wales. The jeopardy in there is as high as it gets in the game. Like, it's as high as it gets in the game. You've got Welsh, one of the greatest rugby nations ever. You've got Georgia, who have invested in their rugby programme. Richard Cockrell's at the helm there as well, just for a bit of context if you didn't know. And they are mad about their athletes, and they're big into their rugby as well. So you imagine the buy-in from that side of the world, Eastern Europe, where they've got some unbelievable athletes in other sports. And I think, so it's interesting you say about getting people around the table, because that's one thing that we don't do in rugby, okay? So you're not a business expert, I'm not a business expert, but we have an opinion, right? And I think we should be allowed near to the table, or I think creatively, I'd love to be involved in these conversations. Triple H, who's in the WWE, one of the greatest wrestlers, okay, of any generation, is now creative director of the WWE. I listened to him on the High Performance podcast. They were talking about storytelling and how he's creative director, but they have to have a story every week, every other day, and they have to have people around the table, 10, 15 people who are coming up with the narratives to talk about, probably a little bit similar to this, like we're thinking about having this fighter lose his championship belt, and they're building stories that have high jeopardy when it comes to finances and interest and all of these different things. We don't have that. So I don't understand. Because you can build these creative narratives that are going to be so big in the game, and these stories that haven't been told, but people don't have these conversations around the I don't even know where these conversations are happening. And I picked up from Triple H saying that there, because he was creative director, so he was like I was at World Rugby. So I'm thinking, okay, I didn't have one creative ideation idea with other creatives who had other ideas of storytelling or globalizing a season. And I was like, why would we not do that?
Let's all throw paint at the wall,
Yeah,
and let's see what sticks. Do you know what I mean? And that's why it's got to be a collective thing. And I would never, but leadership is never one guy ruling with an iron fist. So I think sometimes when people see these opinions, they think that's one guy being a narcissist, thinking, well, he knows his best. Like, no, it's not. It's like, look, this is a starting point for discussion. Can we talk if this is viable or not? Let's talk about the pros and cons of each, and what is the best for the growth and longevity of our game. Keep people engaged, keep the game growing. Like that's the goal, isn't it? You know, like rugby's a massive sport, and it's done really well to get to where it is. But there's so much competition around the world, given the way that people can access content and entertainment. Like it needs to keep evolving continuously, and people love things to stay the same. And it's like, yeah, but you've got to move with the times. You know, you've got to keep moving with the times. I think sometimes there's too much worry about what might go wrong than be excited about, well, what is the opportunity here? You know, like that's what you got to focus on. Of course, you do your due diligence, you factor in all the downsides, and that comes into your planning. But that's why you need a good round table of people with different opinions, because somebody guaranteed would say something to me, and I go, I hadn't thought of that.
100%.
That's very valid.
Yeah,
and I'll stand corrected. No problem at all, you know, and vice versa. I'm sure there's other perspectives which we would benefit from as well. But I don't know if it does. But I would love to know if that was happening, I'd be fine. Do you know what I mean? But I don't know if it is.
I'd love the opportunity to be in that room and to be having these discussions. Even just that's just one idea, right? The Six Nations of having relegation, and learn more about Georgia commercially. How does that look? Spain. What does Spain look like? Spain have got a great age group coming through. They've got a great sevens team. They have got investment in the game. Chat to Javier Bardem and his brother. They want to invest in the game. And I know it takes millions of pounds, but then that triggers them. Okay, right. But we're not. There is no room to. You can't knock on a door and be like, "Let's talk about how something like this could look," because it might not be relegation. It might trigger something else.
And I don't think relegation is the answer now. Not because Wales are doing poor. I think there should be value to, if you're successful, you get more money. And I say that not because. I mean, it would be fantastic entertainment if Wales played Georgia. I couldn't deny that. But I think you wouldn't want Georgia to come up and then go straight back down either. So it's like, I actually don't know. I actually don't know what the best thing is, because it's like anything in rugby, whether it's a Welsh situation, whether it's a Six Nations situation, whether it's World Cup. The problem with any decision you're going to make is there's always going to be a disgruntled corner somewhere. And that's going to be the corner that makes the most noise once a decision is made. I think that's the thing you learn playing rugby is no matter how nice you are, no matter how good you are, not me now, I mean anyone, there's always going to be someone who don't like you. So that's what I tell young kids, just get on with it. Like it doesn't matter. Like you can't please everyone, and that's why I love to see people just coming in, just making a decision and be decisive, because they just accept you can't please everyone. In no walk of life can you make a decision which pleases everyone. So you're going to get that with whatever decision is made, but you've got to make a decision, do all your due diligence and back it 100%. That's what you've got to do. But I think that's where the good leaders in those environments, they'll just come in and do that.
That's what Jamie Peacock was saying last week. So he runs a leadership program, and he said the most obvious thing that blew his mind was people don't do what they say they're going to do in business, or a lot of people. I don't want to say that and throw shit on everyone, but that's exactly it. And that's our game. Like nothing really happens, nothing really happens. And yeah, I'm with you. You look at everything, like any changes that have been made, even if it's a rebrand. Sarries are going through a rebrand at the minute. I've been helping the team with that, and I think it looks cool as well. And I'm like, you've brought me in creatively to advise. I have to give you my honest opinion. Now, there's going to be a corner of traditional fans who'll be like, I don't like that.
Always will.
And that's exactly what it is. And you'd be like, respectful, I get that, but someone has to make a decision. I've been brought in to make that decision or be part of that decision-making process. But
it's like the whole Brexit thing. Like,
oh gosh.
So I'm not political. Right? I don't go down because I don't know enough about it. But the point being is the majority of people voted to leave. So, but then they all went, I'm going to stay quiet at the minute because everyone's going nuts. So, like, it's the same thing in rugby. If you make a decision, the ones who get what they want, they ain't going to shout about it because they've got what they want. It's the ones who don't get what they want who make the noise. So that's why I think people might make a decision and think, oh, we made the wrong. And by the way, I'm not commenting on that. I still don't know enough about politics to discuss that. But just in a rugby context, if you make a decision to change something, people don't like it. It's like, look, that will happen on any decision that you make forever in the world, in the history of human beings. There's always going to be someone who don't like it.
Well, lastly, you do know a bit about politics in rugby.
Do I? Oh,
in
rugby.
Wales.
Yeah, I was
in
gonna
Wales.
go politics,
Let's just finish on this then. I don't know what your views are. I think I heard them, but maybe you can share them. So the landscape isn't great, okay, in Wales. And let's put this out there. Me and Biggs were talking about it, actually, that you're not a businessman. He's not a businessman. Well, you are loosely, but you're...
But not I know what you mean.
We don't understand commercially the numbers. No. I've never looked at a P&L. I didn't even know what a P&L was until someone told me what it was. So there's smarter people with this. I'll maybe just give you my views on this because the same happened in the Premiership when 3 teams went under, when Worcester, Wasps and London Irish and Newcastle were at breaking point. It's sad, right? Of course it is. Anyone loses their job, and in our sport the teams go with deep history like a team specifically like Wasps. But unfortunately, their business hasn't managed to be able to sustain, to carry on going. So they've had to fold. Like, that's the simple economics of an organisation, whether or not it's sport or not. Take out the people, unfortunately, because you have to take emotion out of business. When you speak to successful business people, that's what you have to take the emotion out. Otherwise, you can't do Otherwise, you do what rugby does, and you sat on that. Should we? And then nothing gets done. So with the Welsh stuff specifically, I'm hearing a few rumours. So there's 4 teams currently playing in Wales. So you've got the Great Ospreys, the Great Scarlets, the Great Cardiff, and the Dragons. The Dragons have been around a long time, and I'm hearing that they're sustainable. There's talk of them dropping 2. So that I just wanted to give the listeners a little bit of context. Now, from my point of view, and then I'd love to hear yours. From my point of view, if it's not sustainable, you can't carry on in that vein. You can't be, here's a bit of money there, here's a bit... Because that is rugby. That's what we've done for the last 10 years. And that's why we're not sustainable as a sport. And it's an uncomfortable conversation that people don't like. But I think I'm going to say this. I think fair play. Because someone's now having to do it, and it's fucking uncomfortable. Right? And you're in that process now. Where are you? Where are we? Where's Wales?
So, of course, people are not in I say this a lot of people, right? We don't know this. I reckon there's a lot of people who would be in support of going down to 2, which seems to be the front runner proposition for the Welsh Rugby Union. There's a lot of people up against it. I bet there's a lot of people quietly for it, but they just don't feel the need to verbalise it. One, because they don't want to have shit thrown at them because they support the idea. Now, I think credit to W for making a call. Is it? If you had to give me I had to answer this really quickly, yes or no? Do I agree with it? And I can only say one answer because there's obviously it's deeper than that. I say yes, and I'll say why. Is it optimal for right now? Yes, in my opinion, I think it is. Is it what I want? No. What I want would be the 4 current teams pulling up trees in the domestic league, and we have a 5th team up north. That is optimal. That is when all of Wales is represented, but we're nowhere near having that. We cannot sustain that financially. We don't have the player base to do that unless we bring in a load of foreigners, which defeats the object. So what would I love? I would love 5 teams. I'd love the 4 entities to still exist. I'd love a northern, RGC, Gogledd Cymru, North Wales in Welsh. I'd love an RGC to be a big, like Wrexham have done, have a big commercial and playing wise successful entity up there. That would be what I think would be optimal. But can we do that now? No. What's best for us right now? It probably is to condense it into 2 teams from a financial perspective and from a player base. Now, I think the reason people struggle to imagine that is because the tier below right now is miles off it. So I've always taken inspiration from, it's never rinse and repeat from another nation, but I've always taken inspiration from New Zealand. I'm not sure what it's called now, but the NPC, whether it's your sort of Taranakis against North Harbour, Wellington, Auckland, that's like an exceptional breeding ground for guys to step up into Super Rugby. Now, and I said this about 6 months ago, now the 2-team thing would work, but you've got to supercharge what is called the Super Rugby Cymru, which is the teams underneath that.
Is that like Pontypool, Pontypridd?
So you have to, you have to bring back Llanelli, you have to bring back Neath, have to bring back Pontypridd. These are big, in Welsh context, big brands in rugby, really passionate communities. Now you need to get a 10-team league there where anybody who's not playing for Wales, so say that league runs throughout the year, but when the Welsh lads are away on Six Nations in autumn, say you had 2 sets of professional players in 2 regions, so 45 players, 90 players, 35 in a national squad. So the remaining 6 players, because some of you guys might play in England, 60 guys all drop down into that league every week to play. And then but the coaching goes up, facilities goes up. That's going to need a lot of investment. But then suddenly those teams are playing in front of 3,000-4,000 people, which is more than some crowds at the regions are getting right now. But then you're bringing back to life that tribal nature, which is a strength of ours in Wales. You're bringing back to life that, because people can't see that level at the moment being at the standard it needs to be. If we can get it to that standard, then it'll work. Because I remember going to New Zealand, completely different, but we played an invitational team of people from their NPC, which would be our Super Rugby Cymru. I could not believe the standard. I know they got naturally more gifted players, but that's got to be the inspiration that we take. And can we get this Super Rugby Cymru, where it's your Newports, Ponties, Cardiffs, Nice, Llanellis, Bridgend, a team up north because you need representation up there, and others, the sort of biggest rugby cities and towns historically. If we can bring that level up to a really, really good standard, way better than what it is now, then it can work. Because it's almost going to be like, it'll be truly semi-professional / professional if you can get that standard there. And then your 2 teams then. And I know somebody said, well, who's going to support 2 new teams? I don't know what these 2 teams are going to be. We don't know. And I don't know what the answer is, right? Whether it's East or West, whether it's 2 mergers. I don't know. I'll be honest, I don't know. But all I can say is, if one of those teams is playing in a semi-final of a Champions Cup and they're playing to lose, and they're playing winning rugby for 11 months, and Anton Dupont and Intermac are coming to town, they're playing in Champions Cup semi-final, people will watch. People will turn up and watch. It's a massive game. So success breeds success on the field will breed success off it as well. So it's a little bit of the chicken and the egg, what comes first. But that I think it can work if everything else is done correctly. It can work. Is it optimal for right now? Yes. Is it what I want? It's not what anybody wants. I bet the W are thinking, I wish our 4 teams were killing it and we could add another region and it's brilliant and it was snowballing. But unfortunately, we're not in that situation, which is why a tough decision has to be made.
Yeah, and you don't need to be a businessman to see that.
No.
We can sit here and discuss that because it is obvious. The stadiums are empty, right? You look at the pathway of the players coming through, it's a struggle. So I think it is positive. And the irony is 3 English people who are making the decision. I know they'll be white. I say that in kind of tongue-in-cheek. But it must be so uncomfortable for them. And they are walking through the fire at the minute. But there is no, from my limited business knowledge looking in, there doesn't seem to be another option.
There was I was presented some data, but I won't remember exactly what the numbers were. I could try and put it up, but when you look at the amount of registered rugby players in England and France and South Africa, and then you look at it compared to Wales, proportionately, Wales should have like 1 team. For example, it isn't these numbers, but say somebody had 1 million registered rugby players and they got 10 pro teams. Well, if Wales have got 100,000 registered players on the same proportion, you'd have 1 pro team. It's not those numbers, but this, for example, Wales have got way more teams per proportion of registered rugby players than any of the top nations in the world. So that's why you're kind of up against it. If we had a huge playing base, then we'd be able to support 4 teams, but we don't. So we're just diluting. We're diluting that. Scotland's in a similar position, had to go down to 2. Wales don't have the same playing base as France, as South Africa, as England, so we can't have that. We don't have as much talent, which means we can't have that many teams. And obviously, economically, Wales isn't the most affluent country in the world. So to make those entities then, you might have the players, but to have it commercially viable is more difficult again. So that's why hard decisions are being made, and there's going to be people from communities who don't like it. But that's why I think then whoever suffers at the top 2 level, every community could benefit from really enhancing the SRC, which is what they deserve as well.
Well, that's the thing. So the community aspect, and this is again a negative statement, but where the ball has been dropped in rugby is the heartbeat of your game lived in Neath and Bridgend. You know, I said Pontypool and Pontypridd. When I was younger, you'd go there. You're like, that's the identity of Welsh rugby. And Scotland, you mentioned, like similar, went down to 2 teams. I was in Melrose the other week. I'm walking, you know, people talking to me about rugby. I was like, there's a heartbeat, there's a soul. Melrose, Hoyk, and how they do that, and I don't know what Scotland Rugby did, but there was a semi-pro league in place there, which they kind of half-assed, really. You have to go all in to that semi-pro bit, because that there is the masses, that's the numbers. You build up that tribalism. There needs to be a cup competition that galvanises the community, that kind of sparks that interest of rugby. And that's going to be the hard bit, right? Because when you lose people, and now you've got Wrexham and you've got the football that's taking over, that's going to be the hard bit to bring them back. But I think you can. I think there's still a flame that's lit.
And if you had that at I call it the SRC, that's that sort of tribal comp, then you could do a cross-border Anglo-Welsh, you know, with the English Championship teams, you know. So you could create some great competitions.
There you go. And storytelling. So again, this comes back to the point, right? Who's around the table? I want to know. I'll chat to them. I would love to have them on and be like, okay, that's good. Because you saying that, I'm like, yeah, you've got Doncaster, you've got Nottingham, you've got Coventry, you've got massive
Bedford,
history.
Ealing.
There you go.
Yeah, bring them all across the border.
And then you start to think, okay, well, where's that? I know, like Pro D2, but they're doing their own thing there. But if there's this cross-pollination, like the NBC and Tasman and Canterbury over there, and okay, so is there something in this where you could put together this semi-pro? I don't know. Do you know what I mean? So all of a sudden it's sparking that conversation. But I just want to know I'm interested to know who's round the table trying to piece together the storytelling. Because this here, podcast or content or social media, some people are reading articles about it, or like you, they'll look at the data, but people just want to be told.
Yeah.
And they want to hear the energy. They want to hear the excitement. They want to see change and evolution. And they want to be able to feel that people are doing that instead of being told the whole time, oh, rugby's fucked. It's shit. This is happening. There's no collaboration. Okay, well, let's tell them what's happening.
And this is probably where, I think I don't need to be told what's wrong. I need to be given solutions. People are very quick to say what is wrong, but a lot of people won't stick their neck out and just chuck a solution out there, because we need to know how to fix it. Anyone can state a problem. Anyone can do that and sound clever, but it takes a braver person to actually come up with a solution. Might not be right, but it might be the catalyst to spark a different decision, you know? And that's where I talk about chucking paint at walls. I love to imagine you're like hosting a round table, go, right, I'm sure this has been done, but you go, right, safe place, no one's going to get criticised. What's your opinions and ideas? Let's go. And just be creative, and let's come up with this together. So I hope that was how it sort of came about, but that's how you spark. Somebody might come up with something, you go, that's it.
There you go.
That might be it, but you need that to be a collaborative.
But that's entertainment. So it comes back to what we were initially talking about: sport, media, entertainment. Like, people are interested in that space now, and that is what we're trying to generate. That kind of hysteria. We want the game, which it is at the highest level, is the most entertaining. We can say that, okay, as ex-athletes, and seeing where the game's gone. You look at the jeopardy on the Lions. Mentioned Six Nations Championship. There's so many touch points. Entertaining, however you look at it, however you package it, in short form, in long form, and now we're branching into actually putting the best people in the best seats to deliver that entertainment product to the fans, because there are so many positives.
Yeah, it's a great sport, man.
Yeah,
it's a great sport.
Yeah, it is, and I'm deeply passionate about taking the game forward.
But that's why we talk about it, because we want it to continue being good. We're not doing it sitting on a pedestal, just like we're like because we care. We care for the game. It's given us both so much, and I love it. So I say these things to try and just offer an olive branch to, you know, could this be as good? Could it be better? You know, and that's not just because that's anything in any walk of life could always be improved and be better. But we say it because we care, not because we're being bitter.
Do you know what I'm doing? I've got a little bit of a side hustle.
Oh yeah,
I may as well share it now. It's in the pipeline. So you mentioned Neath, right? So I bought a classic Neath rugby jersey.
Oh wow!
right, from the 1960s on a classic rugby site. And it's more of a business hustle, but I will give back if it goes. So there's my lad wearing it here. So that's
a proper vintage one.
Like a vintage one. So I'm bringing that back. So I interviewed a guy who's in fashion and has built a really cool American brand. So that's my lad doing it there. So
imagine Neath came back and they released a retro jersey like that.
Well,
I'm not saying it's going to be like a selling a Man City shirt, of course, but I'm pretty sure a lot of the Neath community would buy it. You know,
how cool is that?
That'd be so cool,
mate. I got the jersey at home. Cotton Traders.
Yeah.
It's 1960s.
It's so good.
And you could smell the DP. I don't know if they had DP back then, or maybe I just rubbed it in myself.
See, but that's why I went like the SRC, like without, and I'm not from these regions, right? But without Neath and without Llanelli and without Pontypridd is very close to me, but without those three, I'm like, we need those. We need those strong, you know, like people know about Llanelli, they know about Neath, they know about Pontypridd. Like, we need those teams back, you know. So people think I'm pro Cardiff. I'm like, no, all of us need to exist in this ecosystem to survive, you know. So first thing I do is I bring those teams back. You have to.
Where's Neath? I'm Neath now. Now I've done that.
Ospreys. Neath is Ospreys. So it's like you're thinking sort of more Swansea way.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a bit. I say it's not West Wales. It's all loads of it is sort of that south.
Okay.
Sort of section, the sort of bottom half of Wales where all the rugby is, but it's more towards the left.
The great Sam Warburton, mate. Cool to have in the studio. We did it remote. We've done it properly this time.
No, it's good in person, mate. Thanks for having me down. It's been quality.
We'll do it again. Just before you go then, so if people want to get involved in the programme, what's the kind of minimum age really that people can get on board?
Yeah, I'd say 14 is probably where I think is a good time to start developing the physical attributes. But yeah, I mean, it's my passion now. I started with it as a bit of fun with my mate. I was in my garage. Anyone knows, I said to my mum, I'm opening up a site now, a facility next year in June. I want to make it, want to make it awesome. And I was actually chatting to my mum about it the other day. She went, that's what you've always loved that, haven't you? That's like always been your passion. And that's kind of on my advice to you, like do something you love, because it's hard and there's things you've got to do, but I love teaching people. I've been doing it online with SW7 Academy on how to get fitter and better, because I know you'll change your life. Not me now, any training program with a good coach, but just to be fit and healthy will change your life. And I love being able to do that to people and help people. So we've done that online, and now we're going to bring it into a physical space as well, and hope it's the first of a few. So that's it's what kind of. Someone said to me, what's your passion now? Family first always. My kids and my family are my main passion. I'll always serve them first. But after that, it is health and fitness. I love it. I absolutely love it. I live and breathe it every day, so it doesn't really feel like work. So yeah, I love helping people trying to get to a better place.
That's cool. And it's sw7.com, is it?
SW7academy.com.
You got the .com.
Yeah, we got in there early. We trademarked it, got in there early.
If you did it now, it would be gone. Someone would be like, no, we're going to take it and make him buy it. The great Sam Warburton, mate. So cool to have in the studio. Thank you so much.
Legend. Cheers, Jim.